Hello. Hello. What's going on, people? I have the washing machine going on in the background. I thought it would be done by now. I hope it's not too loud. Put it on extra rinse, which apparently means like an extra hour. Laundry stream. I think I can get rid of this. Yeah, I can. Let's just call that a check-in, shall we? Well, let's. So the reason I can delete that is because we're not currently loading save games, and when we do, we'll upgrade the version number of the file so that we don't try to load them. And that entity is no more. Remove entity type. All right. So we got something done tonight, no matter what else happens. So what's going on out there? What are people thinking about today? You're watching Edmund stream. I didn't know he streams. That's cool. Oh, I guess I saw him stream a really, really long time ago, before I ever streamed. Does this indicate that we may release games on the Mac? We've released games on the Mac before. We currently have games on the Mac. We may not do any more because it's terrible and nobody buys them, but we have. So the question is, without implementing a profiler, can I figure out what's going on that's taking all the frame rate and skipping stones and some other levels? let's see if we can make things, if we go to like infinite looping skipper. Like this one. Oh, I've got breakpoints. Stop, remove all the breakpoints. Remove them. How is this looking in OBS? Can you actually see the character move? Better than before. You know why? Because I downgraded OBS. That's why. Now the frame rate on the actual game is slower. And I think that's because of the debugger. There's something that Remedy does that slows down execution substantially. I'm not sure what it is. I just want to let this stone skip for a bit and maybe do some undos and so we're getting like 24 FPS. I just want to see if it ever gets driven down real low. Not seemingly. Well, let's see. Let's just go to skipping stones. Let's just start playing. We're getting close to 60, which surprises me. Why was it so low on that other level? Maybe that'll be a thing to investigate. Spoilers. It's massive spoilers. I think I screwed up. I did. This one has to go up here. This one got to go down here. Wait, no? How do I... Oh, I do this, I think. Yeah, oh, we're fine. We fine. See, I don't perfectly remember everything, ever. So the frame rate is lower now. It's like 40 something. Question is it going to keep getting lower? Okay, what's my best? Guess we do this. So many spoilers, people. So many spoilers. Is this generated? No. This is composed of, if I open the editor on it, so this is in the Unity game engine. No. It is basically, there's some overlay pieces, right? And then there's some sort of just pieces we could drag around and put wherever we want. Right? And you just make the islands that way. Try doing a long string of undos in a row. Yeah, I will in a minute. Oh, I could do that for now, sure. It definitely dropped while I was doing them. Oh, maybe it does. Let's redo those, what we just did, and undo again. So it's maybe something with undo, which is interesting. I always get this puzzle confused with a different puzzle. All right, undo, undo. Yep, I mean, it sure seems like undos are costing us money. Like even while I'm undoing it slow, which that's not that surprising, but then after I'm done, it doesn't recover. Let's undo all the way back to the beginning. Six FPS. Let's keep going. All my progress is getting destroyed back at the beginning. All right, 4 FPS. So now we're going to do a trick where if you don't have a profiler available, I mean, I've never done it with this debugger before, but this trick is called, just if your frame rate's really slow, just break in the debugger and you'll probably be in the code that's slow. Right? If you're in a sleep somewhere or something, then you probably missed it, or if you're in a like a mutex or a different thread. But here we're in the main thread and we're in a plus. So that says, hey, look, we're in sim particle. I bet there's like a lot of particle emitters in the world. Let's go up here, update emitters. Okay, so this is just saying for every particle source in the world, do some stuff. Okay. So the question is, why are they all here? So we have 27,100 particle emitters in the world. That is less than I would recommend. If you want to succeed in the game industry, do not exceed 27,094 particle emitters instanced in the world at one time. Okay, so what I suspect is happening. So I believe in the undo system, we just ignore particle sources. So we don't save or restore particle sources because we expect entities that are creating particle sources to do that themselves. So we're probably, before we undo, we're not appropriately destroying particle sources, or we're probably setting them to soft destroy instead of hard destroy, and like soft destroy doesn't work. You know, like a soft destroy would be just to say, hey, particle source, it's time for you to die out now, but you still have particles on the screen. We don't want them to all disappear in a discontinuous way, right? So just stop generating new particles, and then when all your current particles have disappeared, then delete yourself. That's a very common thing to do in video games, or I assume. I mean, I haven't seen how other engines do it, but that's mostly the only way to do it. The only other way to do it is just to multiply all the particles down by an alpha and then delete it when that's done. So they're both delayed deletions. So what a particular performance problem? Not really. I mean, games have problems like this all the time. If you work on games, you see this kind of thing all the time. Okay. Well, we're in update emitter. So update emitter internal. It's been a very long time since I've looked at this, and it may have been modified. So let's look at this guy. Dude, it feels so much better typing in this. Like even in Visual Studio, like it takes longer for the keystrokes to get on the screen just for regular typing. So, like, man. All right. Well, there's a lot of deprecated members here. You know what I'm going to do? We could do an apocalyptic save out and delete deprecated members. I'll call it deprecation scrub. You know what? We'll do that on the weekend when people are unlikely to have stuff checked out. And then we can delete all these member variables. We use the Unity plugin for Unreal with the Crytek expansion pack and the Godot asset library. All right, so let me just look at all these frickin' fields and see if there's anything. So producing is set to true. So like, it's not what I thought. And in fact, so producing set to true just means, hey, we're generating new particles. Although, let's look. There might be like a flag, because like I said, it's been a long time. Okay, here's a declaration of particle source. I don't really see anything else except for producing. So I think, oh no, yes, okay. So I think we just set producing to false when we want it to die out. So I suspect that what happens when we undo is just that we don't set this maybe. Right? This is what's supposed to happen. Well, let's see if this is set. Emitter Delete on undo, false. Okay. So I imagine this is probably true. Let's look at like by type dot particle source number 10 out of 29,000 or however many. Oh, let's do this. Structure field not found. God, dude, this is a thing where debuggers need to be better about this. Oh, it's okay. Never mind. Let's just go up here to where we have a frickin' manager. All right. Like, tell me which field wasn't found. All right. So there we go. So this is just number 10 out of 29,000. If anything should have been dead, this one should have been dead a long time ago. And delete on undo is false. So we're just not setting delete on undo for these things. Now, the question is, where was this created? Can we tell by looking at the data? Or are we going to need to put a little debug info on it? Particles per second 7. Let's see. It's mounted on stuff. Oh, it's got a mesh. All right. Oh, that's going to be just the handle mesh. Entity name, nothing. Okay, wait. My theory about what's happening is not correct yet, because the frame rate got a lot lower after the undos. Oh, it's because it's... All right. We're just going to audit. We're going to say what happens when we make these. Because what happens is, after an undo happens, we load all these entities, and then we say, create the particles for them. In fact, we have a post undo reevaluate that might even do that. Okay, here's what we do. We delete on undo anything that was set that way. And then do we have like a lot of splashes? Let me just see. No, good. I expected 0, I got 0. Okay, so just sometime when we're creating particles, we're not telling the game that they should be deleted on undo when we should. So let's just find someone who's doing that. Create. It's probably when the stones skip and make a splash, because there's not that many different particle sources that we're actually creating. But we're going to break in spawn particle group at. All right, so we're just going to look in here at who's calling this. All right. Well, so Remedy has this problem. Oh, no, never mind. No, it has this problem. So sometimes after you break, it just throws an exception. I don't know why. I haven't reported this bug yet, but it happens to me all the time. So we have to restart the game. That's fine, though. Oh, the author is here. Yeah, that's a problem. I often have this problem where there's a breakpoint. I think it's only when I use control break and not when I use an actual breakpoint for some reason. It just kills my program. I can't resume. When is Sokoban launching? We don't know. Not for a long time, probably. Okay, so here we've broken at spawn particle group, and I suspect that when we return, step out, Shift F11. Okay, wait. There is simply no way to mark things as destroy on undo here. Am I supposed to set that in the editor? I should know. It's my setting, but I don't remember. Delete on undo. I mean, I kind of don't want content people to have to set this. Right? So what is it called? Do not display. So we're going to say do not display so that people don't have to edit this. And we're going to do it in code. So we're going to audit every place that calls spawn particle group at. In fact, actually, we're going to make it a non-optional parameter, which will force us to audit this. Because nobody will, oh, actually, because it's a Boolean. We'll make it non-optional anyway, so that people have to think about it in the future. But we still need to audit this because anyone who was calling this and specifying do group would still pass compile time type checking unless they did it. Well, yeah. All right. So if delete on undo result group dot delete on undo is true, and then this seems, oh, okay, no, this is fine. So we clone it, and we'll set it here, that delete on undo. All right, great. So then who calls this? Let's go here and stop this. Who calls this? A lot of people. Let's go through all of them. If I was being really hardcore, you know what? I'm going to be really hardcore. So nobody will compile because we changed the name of the function. So every single one of these must be reviewed before we will compile. This is a very powerful technique because it means that you don't make mistakes. Did we have an F? What's going on? People are effing in chat. Okay, so everybody's trying to say spawn particle group, and we have to visit all of those. That's fine. So create particle group at. We do want to delete this on undo. In fact, I think we're going to pass true every single time, right? Oh, delete on undo. Sorry, not create on undo. Yeah, delete on undo. These are all like temporary effects. Well, hold on though. We don't actually want to delete these on undo. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Back the bus up. I'm doing the wrong thing here. I do this sometimes. I think I know what's happening, and then I start sleepwalking. Okay, hold on. The delete on undo is specifically for entity types that have particle sources like embedded in the entity, where that source gets created on creation of the entity, for example. That is not what happens here with like a splash. So you know what? I actually wonder if the problem isn't undo. I wonder if the problem is that splashes just never go away, but doing a lot of undos is a very fast way to multiply your number of splashes. That is my new theory. Okay. That is my new theory. See, I already changed it. Dang it. All right. Okay. Because when you're undoing, you would quickly add if we never delete splashes, we would quickly add everything that was ever in history. So I think that's what's happening. Let's try it. So I'm just going to set a breakpoint early on. So there are particle sources for the ocean that make these. I think there are 2 of them. So let's find a place to break, because I don't want to use control break, because then I won't be able to continue anymore. We could break up here when we create the Lily transact. Oh, the scroll bar is so tiny, dude. I bet I can change that. Can we change that? Help, control, session. Where I know there are settings because I changed the fonts. Does it like go away when I'm in the debugger for some reason? Okay. Fail because I can't make the scroll bar bigger. Well, F. Yeah. It's just so, I'm on a 4K display and it's so tiny over here. Like it's almost ungrabbable. And then like the cursor doesn't actually change to the arrow when I'm over the scroll bar, although the scroll bar does highlight. Anyway. I mean, I should be in the habit of using page up, page down, home, end, because it's faster, but I'm just not for whatever reason. Okay, we were going to go here. There we go. I'm getting hungry. We might have to have a snack on stream. All right, so we're updating the Lily timer, which is just something that happens every frame. So it's like a safe place to break, I guess. Well, I forgot now what I was doing before I got sidetracked. Oh, We just want to know how many particle sources are there. And I think there's 2. We're just going to look at this thing. 1, okay. We go next time, 1, 1, 1. Okay, no surprise. We're going to get rid of this breakpoint for a minute. We're going to go back to the game. Well, this is not even on the same level, but that's fine. So we're going to make a bunch of splashes. We made like, I don't even know how many. A number of them. We're going to break here again. How many particle sources? Just 1. So is it, if we recreate them from undo, that we have too many? Let's see. Undo. Oh, I should maybe move around while doing that. Hold on. How many particle sources? Just still 1. Interesting. All right, so I'm going to kick it off, and I'm going to run around while that's happening. And then we'll see how many. Still 1. And then I'll undo. The other thing that gets me all the time is like, well, I won't talk about it. Still 1. Interesting. All right. So maybe whatever's causing the problem, maybe it's not the splash. Okay. I was assuming it was the splash, but let's go to skipping stones, which is the level where we have this problem. Skipping stones. All right. So now let's check it. 35. Okay. These are on the frickin' lilies, probably. I thought I took those out of the game. Let me see. There are 33 lilies. There's 1 particle source. Okay. So it is, okay, the lily particle sources are being created. It's stupid. You can't even see them right now. So I don't know why we're creating them. They just wanted them on there, whatever. We have these particle sources you can't even see. And there's 1 per lily, and those are not being flagged correctly. So, well, this should be easy to repro, because I will do this, and then I will go to spawn. It's called spawn particle group again. I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to undo. Boom. Okay, call stack. We're here. We spawned the lily particles. And we don't set delete on undo on them. I suspect this is because someone besides me did this originally. I think Salvador added these and he just didn't know. This is one of these things where like he didn't know that this is how it's supposed to work, and I didn't document it because if we're going to do this a lot, this isn't the right way to do it. All right. I'm going to make it work more in line with the gates. So we have this ensure gate particles exist. We're going to do that for lilies. Okay. We're going to do this, ensure lily particles exist it, right? So is that in here? Yeah, okay. So this one we actually don't, okay. See, he probably copied it from this. Now the thing is, this one doesn't have to say delete on undo because we call this otherwise. I think. We should check that later, but anyway, okay. All right. Now we want to set this on both the group and the lily, and so hopefully I return the group now. I think I do. Spawn particle group out. Yeah, it returns the particles and the group. So we do this. We say if group dot. So we're not going to make this a general property of these lower level functions, and the reason I'm not going to do that is I don't like complicating lower level things if I don't have to, because lower level complication can spread upward very quickly. You want to keep the core as simple as possible. And so if we start doing a lot of this, like attaching particles to specific entity types, we should just have a higher level function that does that and sets this flag. I would prefer to do that way. So if group dot delete on undo is true, p dot delete on undo is true. Okay, let's try that. I bet that fix. Oh, manager. Bet that done fix the. Oh, it. We might have earned a chai latte today, because I've been wanting to fix this for months, and it hasn't been that hard to fix, but like I've just been so overrun with other stuff to do that it's been months. All right. So we're going to go back to skipping stones. Like we actually had someone new who we hired in the office. I mean, this was back before everybody was working. Back before the home key isn't working. What? Home key doesn't go home. That plus scroll bar not working? Ugh. All right. I wanted this file anyway. Okay, so we're here. We're going to check this. There should be just 35 particle sources again. 33, yeah, whatever. So we're going to do some stuff that causes lilies to move around. And we're going to make sure we only got 33 particle sources. Or approximately that. We certainly don't want hundreds or thousands. All right. So let's see. What have we got? Particle sources. 35. Okay. That's more than 33. So we might still be leaking some. Like we somehow added 2 particle sources, and I'm not sure that that's okay. So let's play a little bit more and see if we get some more. But it is hella less of a leak than we had. Screen flashing is a checkpoint save. We'll change what that is probably for the final ship. Oh, I checked lily sources at 33, not particle sources. Right. Oh, so the particle sources would be 35, because it's 2 for the ocean and 33. Let's see again. Right. Okay, no, this is fine, I think. Let's do a little bit more undos. Yeah, anyway, our new employee was trying to play this to get the hang of it, and it just got unplayably slow for her, like before she even got 2/3 of the way to the end. All right, boom, this is good. Now we're going to make a release build, and we're going to run a Benny test to make sure that we did not screw anything up. I am very happy that's fixed. Undo looks much faster now too, yeah, because when we undo those particle sources, okay, so if you just instantiate a particle source in the world, then, well, okay, When we save a particle source, we do not save the position of every particle, because that would just be a ridiculous amount of memory. You don't want to do that, right? So we just save the core entity state that generates the particles. And then, you know, when you load those out of the undo system, you then look at them and say, okay, you know, this is our particle state. Now, the problem is you don't know where the individual particles were. And so what you tend to do in games is you like warm up the particle system, or various people call this different things, but you like run it for a little bit. You run the particle simulator for some amount of time so that you get it to like enough time that there's some particles there, so that then you'll see it on the screen, right? This isn't just games with undo that would do this. Like games with visibility calling would do it. Like, you know, if you've ever played like a game with particly torches and you come around the corner and the torch suddenly turns on with particles, it's because it was being visibility called and the particle simulator wasn't running while it was invisible, and they didn't warm it up when they made it appear. So anyway, if you warm it up, that makes it not look goofy like it just turned on, but it also costs CPU. And you can imagine that if you decide to warm up 30,000 particle sources, that might take a little bit of time. And that's why undo itself was being slow. And then per frame slowness happened because, you know, you had to simulate all 30,000 particle sources every frame. But warming them up is even slower than that, because warming them up is like simulating them a number of times, right? Do you just slow the warm-up down? No. I mean, if you don't fully warm it up before you put it on the screen, people will see. So I don't know what you mean. Why not freeze the particles? Because you'd have to store all that data somewhere. And that'll massively increase the size of your save game. Maybe you should document this so that it doesn't happen on other stuff. Maybe, but like I said, I'm going to change how it works probably. So I'm not going to document something that is not... I'm not going to document something temporary. Deterministic particles with seeds. Yeah, you could do that. That's what Braid did. It's not what this game does, because with particles that aren't deterministic, you have more power, actually, in a lot of ways. Because if particles are not deterministic, you can run whatever physics on them that you want. They can respond to world state. They can do all sorts of things. Particles that are deterministic, can't do that stuff. Of course, your response to world state would probably be gone anyway, depending on what it is, if you pulled it out of undo and warmed it up. So, you know. Tab back to Benny test? Why? Look, it's going. It's going. Trust that it's going. Can't you use an LCG and have the best of both worlds? I mean, everybody always uses an LCG, so I'm not sure what you are suggesting that solves. If you're saying that you could regenerate all the particles from the state of the LCG, you could do that, but it's not totally obvious, because the default thing that you would save is the LCG at the end of the random number generation, and you need the LCG state at the beginning. So you either would need to save that per particle, which is expensive, or you would have to save whatever. No, you would have to save it per particle in memory while running the particle system, Or just, no, I guess you could save it for the first particle and then walk it forward and just believe that it's the same. But then your particles have to die in order, which they don't necessarily, right? Or you could walk it backward by however many steps that you would need to get to the first particle. But you would still need to save particle indexes. You would need to save more data. There's no way to do it without saving more data or adding restrictions to what can actually happen. When the volume is up, the Benny Hill plays. No, not anymore. Our audio people ruined the Benny Hill, unfortunately. Well, not just them, but the levels are handmade. They are not procedurally generated. Concede the Lamer LCG function based on the XY position of the particle, so you don't need to store anything. But you don't have an XY position of the particle before it exists. How do I like Remedy so far? There are many things about it that are better than Visual Studio. There's a few things that are not better, but it feels like those are going to get better over time. So that's great. And I'm not even really trying to use all the features yet. Like, I guess Casey had a project file or something where, like, I guess you could save your session and it has all your source files, or I haven't done that. Like, I don't trust that. But there's some very basic things here that I've always wanted Visual Studio to do, and I guess other people did too because it's here. So like this, the fact that you can just type the frickin' command and the arguments here is great. Because, dude, like, arguments, you just want to change them all the time, especially when I'm working on the compiler. I kind of would like to be able to pick from like a common palette of these so I don't have to type them all the time. But this is way better than having to go into a weird submenu in Visual Studio. This is something you want to change all the time. Use an initial seed to generate the set of particles, but I mean, you don't need to store seeds on a per particle basis. But then the seed, again, the seed that you would need is from the past, right? So you need to save a lot of seeds, I guess, and then keep only the one for the first particle. That's not, these days, that's not the worst because particles tend to have more properties these days. So spending an extra 2 bytes or 4 bytes to store a seed, 2 bytes because you don't necessarily need a cryptographically secure seed for particle. Although if you skimp too much, it could be bad. But anyway, in this game, it doesn't even matter that much because you don't need to exactly reproduce the particles in this game. In Braid, you did. In this game, that's not a requirement. And so we would not work that hard to try to reproduce the exact particles in this game. I felt that Casey was too busy doing what? Oh, is Casey part of the beta? Casey has a lot of projects. Yeah, I'm not going to bother him until much later. Do I think this might fix the undo problem in the other big levels as well? No. Anything that caused desync in the levels was a different problem. Now, I have been working very heavily on the movement system, and so a lot of things are fixed. I would not recommend re-recording big level tests for a while, though, because things are still changing heavily. Save a few sample warm-ups and start from one of them. No one would notice. Maybe, yeah. I mean, depending on how your particle source works, that might be a thing you could do. But if you have a small number of particle sources, warm-ups are not that bad. The reason warm-ups were bad was because we had 30,000 of them, right? I mean, we could have 300 particle sources and it would be 100 times as fast as it was, and that's the debug build. So the release build would be way, way faster. And then if we optimized it, it would be faster. So, you know, there's different ways of approaching the problem. Hey, look, we're done. We didn't crash. We do have fails, but we expected fails. We have 343 successes and 86 fails, which means we have 429 levels right now. Only. Do good implementations store particle data contiguously separately from other entity data? Yes. You would not. Okay. One of the worst things you can do in a game engine is making a particle an individual entity. That's a bad idea. Don't ever do that. You want, at least for one emitter, you want all the particles packed together. You might, if you're very hardcore, put all the particles for the entire game together in one array and simulate them all, which is maybe the fastest thing to do, but there are some reasons you might not want to do that. Have I finished devs? I don't know if all the episodes are out yet. Did it come out today or something? How long does it take to create a new level? It depends. I have created fun levels in 15 minutes. I have also created fun levels in 5 hours. New episode tomorrow. What is Devs? It's a really good TV show. Next Thursday? Okay, so there's 2 more episodes. What's Devs? Are you telling me there is a show about programming that's watchable? Watch the show Devs. Do not look up anything on the internet about it. Everything is a spoiler. Don't even... It's on... I guess it's a Hulu show or something. I watched it off Amazon. Don't even read the episode descriptions. Just watch the show. It's a really good TV show. Really good. And I don't like hardly any TV shows. I'm not one of these people who says that, like, Stargate Alpha Centauri is a really good show or whatever, right? You know, Star Trek Geordi. No, I don't like those shows. Your ECS engine has components stored contiguously rather than entities containing components stored contiguously. Lets you do things like iterate entity positions with very few cache misses, but you want particles separate because their behaviors. Yeah, I mean, there's just no reason to combine them with anything else. It's like you end up just playing. Like if you try doing that, it's because you're trying to do like programmer macho games that aren't actually going to help you, and you're going to revert it later anyway. You just keep particle data separate. Use predicate logic to query entities. Have I given up completely on declarative programming? Yes. Declarative programming is not really a language, I've decided. It's a library. It's not really a language. You don't want it in your programming language. Have I seen Halt and Catch Fire? I have not. Why do I think good positional audio doesn't happen in modern games? Just people haven't put in the work. That's all. If people took it seriously, it would be very good. There are difficulties, right? Because like different people's ears respond differently to stuff. Like the shape of your ears, you know, determines a lot of things. But like, look, it's video games. We could have 100 frickin' presets in the thing, in the game of different filters, different HRTFs to use, and you run some calibration in the beginning and it figures out which preset is better for you, right? Like, we don't do that. Nobody cares. And it's not just about position in space, right? But also like occlusion and reverb and stuff, and just... graphics sells games and audio doesn't, but we're running to the end of graphics. So, or we're not running to the end of graphics. No, there's tons more to do in graphics. We're running to the end of graphics being the dramatically exclusive selling point of a game. Do the many interacting systems in this game cause more bugs compared to The Witness? It's hard to compare, but probably yes. You're curious where the dev's office is. It looks like Pacifica. I mean, like there's a whole bunch of areas like that. Like if you go down 280 from San Francisco, it's pretty obviously supposed to be somewhere along 280 between San Francisco and like Sand Hill Road somewhere. Probably about 2/3 of the way down. I don't know. Maybe closer. Doesn't matter, right? It's we have not officially announced any of our projects, including this one, so, and we won't for a long time. Where do I think graphics improvements would be most noticeable? Because I don't know if I can even detect feeling improvements, ray tracing. Well, the ray tracing that you see right now is kind of a gimmick. Ray tracing does have a lot of ability to look better and let us do things in rendering that we cannot do outside of ray tracing. So it's a legitimate technology. The problem is using it in a legitimate way is too slow on current generation hardware. And it'll always be slower than rasterization rendering probably. And so for ray tracing to really pay off, you need hardware that's good enough that you can do reasonable quality scenes with ray tracing really turned on, not like gimmick turned on. And that'll be a little bit. We're not there yet, but we'll be there eventually. You recently had a bunch of disjoint line segments you need to draw in OpenGL, so you made a line vertex array of 2n lines and put a transparent line in between your actual line segments you wanted to draw. Is there a better way? I mean, probably. I'm not sure, right? I mean, definitely if you want to draw disjoint triangles, you set the primitive type to triangle list instead of triangle fan or triangle whatever the other one is, triangle strip. For line segments, I don't know if there's an equivalent. Hard to say. I don't care. I think OpenGL is a bad API. So I don't pay attention to it. Do I think languages influence processor design? They do to an extent, but the thing is, processor design is just very reality based. To a certain extent, it doesn't matter what the languages are, right? So if you make a CPU that's made to run Lisp, it's still going to be dog crap slow because Lisp programs are going to have you randomly navigating pointers across the heap all the time. And that's just really slow. It doesn't matter if you make hardware for that or not. Like there just are limits to what could actually happen. So don't overestimate. Now that said, I'm not a hardware designer, but you know, I believe that the people designing processors are doing whatever they can figure out how to make CPUs fast. It's not that much driven by specific programming languages. What API is this game using? It's using OpenGL for now, but it will not when we ship. Yep, lots of internet services are failing to work. That is right. What language would I consider a good starting point to learn programming? I honestly don't know. Just pick something. Doesn't matter. Do I feel like making games forever? I don't know. Or do I think about transitioning to other media? I mean, I think games are the best medium for me to work in if you're talking about like artistic media, but I think about doing other things with my life for sure. For sure. All the time. Video games is a relatively thankless place to be, honestly. Did I happen to use an SGI machine? I mean, I was an intern at SGI, or no. Yeah. Not an intern. Sorry, I was getting that confused with the time I was an intern at Sun. I had a contract at SGI for 6 months shortly after I was in college. So I used an SGI machine at that time, not to do fancy graphics things though. In college, I system administered some machines, including some SGI machines, but I didn't use them regularly because I never took the graphics class. Sounds like Paul Graham is starting his kid on BASIC. Yeah, you could do much worse than BASIC for sure. Python is the new BASIC. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. No, it ain't. To get away from OpenGL, will you write your own graphics library? We write our own graphics library for every game that we ship. That's how most games, it's how most high quality graphics games work, is they write their own graphics library. What was the biggest concession I ever made in a game when it came to balancing the feature I wanted to implement versus how I thought the public would react to it negatively? I don't make that kind of concession. I do what I want to. I don't care what people will think. I mean, I care if they will understand something, and I try my best to make it understandable, and I try my best to have it be a positive experience. But I mean, I'm not a socially driven person, right? I mean, everything in life has taught me that the masses have poor taste in many things, and if you just cater to what you think that taste is, you probably won't create things that are very special. There's probably some exceptions to that in the world, but the strategy that I adopted was not to do that. And so I literally don't care. Do I dabble much in infrastructure development? Curious what kind of problems DevOps, infra, SRE folks. Why do people need so many ways to say system administrator, first of all? They're just system administrators. We don't really run live services or anything. We do have a website and we do have source control, but we don't really have anyone whose job it is to take care of those things. And it's kind of bad because we let them decay sort of over time. Occasionally we put someone on those things, but not seriously enough and not for long enough. But we're not really big enough to hire somebody to do that full time. So that's a problem. And then every time we try to hire a contractor off the internet to do that stuff, they're like super flaky and probably not capable of doing the job. So, I don't know what to say about any of that. Honestly, JavaScript is pretty good. No, it isn't. No, it isn't. Did I ever have to remove for something after playtesting because it was unfun or made the game less enjoyable? I intentionally put things in my games that make them less enjoyable. What do you, I don't try to maximize enjoyableness. That is not my parameter. I think that's boring. I think people who are just trying to make the most fun game are limiting themselves to a significant degree. My birds keep disappearing. Yeah, that's because I didn't put them in. There's something that was put in as a test. They're not really real. And also, I think they were put in when the map was much smaller and just kind of centered around this area over here, which is why, like, they probably don't disappear on this screen. I don't think we should have those birds on this level. I don't understand why they're there, but you know, it's just a test for now. Because sysadmins code now. Yes, guys, sysadmins always wrote programs back to the 1960s. Like, people who think that that's not true are just completely ignorant. Sysadmins always wrote programs. Like, what are you even talking about? It's like, you know, younger people always want to think that they're smarter than the people from before. That's a natural impulse, but like, in many cases, it's not true. Like, sysadmins, well, you could have sysadmins who were dumb and didn't know anything, but good sysadmins knew how to program. They certainly wrote a lot of shell scripts, which is more of a real programming language than JavaScript a lot of the time. Because you could actually do things on your computer with it. But then also, yeah, like, I don't understand why people say DevOps means the sysadmin programs. No, it's just system administrators. Get off your high horse. Do we have linear algebra, quaternion operations, geometric algebra implemented? We definitely have the basic linear algebra and quaternion stuff that most games would use implemented. Yeah, I mean, that stuff is simple, right? Like, so like multiplying matrices together, getting lengths of vectors, dot producting, cross producting, interpolating between quaternions, converting between a quaternion rotation matrix, all that kind of a thing is there. Other stuff, other people could build. It's fine. Enjoyment and fun are different, though. Well, I wouldn't use the word enjoyment even. Casey said that TensorFlow is a library that doesn't do anything, and I seem to agree. Could I explain more what I mean? TensorFlow is just a scene graph for, you know, well, let's not even say convolution operations, but for AI style bulk operations. And scene graphs don't do anything. They just don't. We've used lots of scene graphs in video games, scene graph APIs. They were always terrible. We gave them up. So, yeah. It's actually a lot like immediate mode versus retain mode user interfaces, but way, way worse, actually. Because you can actually build a program with a retain mode user interface, and it actually kind of works pretty well. It'll probably be a little bit slow and much harder to program than the immediate mode one, but like, it works. Whereas scene graph stuff is just crappy. It's always been crappy. Isn't a game supposed to be a means of escapism? Not my games. Whoever taught you that didn't have a very enriched view of the world. You wouldn't describe The Witness as a fun game, but you thoroughly enjoy it. You think enjoyment is just a metric for whether or not you like something, and not the specific medium of what you liked about it. Maybe. I mean, sure. I mean, there's lots of dimensions there. Let's put it that way. And I mean, I think it's totally reasonable to say someone enjoyed it. I hope that people enjoy the game when they play it, right? But when I'm designing the game, I'm not trying to optimize people's enjoyment. That's not what's happening. Something very different from that is happening. The id Software developers mentioned moving away from a single core scheduler to a more parallel job system in general. How would this be done? You know, it's complicated. I don't want to go into it right now because it's very hard. In general, Amdahl's law says that if you have a single core whose job is to schedule stuff, you're going to be waiting on that core. It's going to act as a bottleneck. I mean, it's not specifically only Amdahl's law in isolation that says that, but it sort of does. And you'll certainly observe this naturally very quickly when you try to write fast parallel programs. So if you want to actually use all the cores on your CPU, then they have to be able to pick up and do work without centrally coordinating somehow, right? It has to be at least to some degree decentralized. And that's hard. Which is also why I laugh at all these programming languages that say, we help you do good parallelism. It's like, no, you don't. No, you guys don't. No, you don't. Wow, all these questions keep coming in. Well, this bird's a particle effect, yes. And I'm not a big fan of doing macroscopic things like birds that way. I would rather have an authored bird with an animation on it. That's, of course, probably more expensive, but there's not that many birds on the screen here. Like, if you're going to do this density of stuff, just animate it. You know, don't particle it. Particles are for when there's like a lot of something. Which, you know, we could have just like a crap load of birds at some point. Who knows? Is there a use case where this programming language is not suitable for? Yes. It's not a good programming language for people who don't want to think about the details of how the computer works. So like any application where the person doing the programming is not a professional programmer, like if they're just trying to do some stuff to configure a program in what you would traditionally call a scripting language or something, this language is not good for that. Do I think about making procedural games? Sometimes. Wasn't chai latte time? It was, but then people put me in a bad mood, so we're not going to do chai latte. We're going to do fruit bar. The graphs are compiled from code now. That's fine, but you don't want graphs. You just don't want graphs ever. The graphs need to go away. You don't want graphs ever. You want something just like compilers normally have. It creates quite a good overall environment and provides tools like TensorBoard. No, dude, I know a number of people who work at Google who think TensorFlow is a terrible pile of crap and who use it frequently, okay? I think your idea that it creates a quite good overall environment is a minority opinion. Me and Casey said something like, we all thought quaternions were the best thing. Are they not? No, everyone uses quaternions in games. I'm not sure what you're referring to, so I can't answer that. Do I know an immediate mode user interface that does not barf when you try to input non-Latin characters? Not offhand. The thing is, it's just probably, that doesn't really have to do with immediate mode versus retained mode at all. It has to do with, the fact that just a lot of fonts, or there's really no font that has all the characters in it. So it's surprisingly annoying and involved to just say, oh, somebody typed this character, let's draw it on the screen. Because you don't even know what font that character's in. So you have to maybe come with a whole bunch of fonts that are roughly sized and styled to work with each other. And that across them will have most characters that you'll ever want to display. And that's the hard part. It doesn't really have anything to do with immediate mode or retained mode. I would say that probably most immediate mode projects don't have that high of a budget that they would go do that. Is probably what's happening. What emotions am I trying to elicit? I don't think about it that way. That's Genova Chen's deal. That's not my deal. Do I think of it more as art? Yes. Help you understand Eric Weinstein's geometric unity. I have not watched that episode yet, so I cannot help you. How do I manage threads, queues, sync primitives in my code and with the new language? I mean, some combination of using atomic integer operations and or, atomic swaps for pointers, compare and swaps, and just mutexes and semaphores. That's just how you do it. Do I think that there's unnecessary hype around the programming language? I mean, I'm glad that people are excited about it. That's better than nobody caring. But I also just, people keep asking me the same questions all the time. When's it ready? When can I get in the beta and stuff? And I'm just like, I wish people didn't do that. But that's better than having nobody care. How am I doing today? I'm doing good. I mean, the questions put me in a bad mood, but there's no reason for me to stay in a bad mood. So, Do I know how many time zones there are in the Soviet Union? Of course I do. And I agree that it's not even funny. We have so much power now. What is most fun to write, a game or a programming language? Neither one of them is fun. Both of them are momentarily fun sometimes, but most of it is not fun. I'm probably the only guy that has done the two. That's not true. A number of programmers have done both programming languages and games. Have I experimented with high abstraction programming? There's a camp in academia that thinks that we need to just rethink the whole darn computer programming model because this one is too brittle and specific. Give me an example of high abstraction programming, because I'm not sure I know of any. I'm glad you got the COVID game bundle. The money will go to a good place. You meant that TensorFlow creates this overall environment that would be insanely difficult to replicate from scratch. You can get things done that would take you years to implement on your own. Sort of, but I mean, that doesn't justify the model of the thing. Like, look, what it should just be is just like everything else in computers that's useful, there should just be some libraries with some functions that'll operate on the stuff. Shouldn't have been a graph ever. It should just be some functions that you call. Is it useful that some people wrote those libraries and you don't have to write them? Maybe. Would I use those libraries if I was doing neural network stuff? Probably not. I might use them in the very beginning to get started, but like probably I wouldn't use them. Just like I don't use them for video game rendering. So, you know. What are my thoughts on rotors versus quaternions? I mean, they're the same thing, except that rotors generalize to more dimensions. So if you understand rotors, that's better in some sense. Let's go to a different level that's not all white. Wow, we talk. Whoops. There we go. Actually, let's go to a nicer level. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? There we go. Rainbow colors. It's not that much nicer because all the bars don't look really that good, but Can I talk about how I manage projects? Just not very well, honestly. Did I enjoy doing it? No. I enjoy having gotten projects done, but they're really not fun to work on. What's the hardest thing I've had to deal with while building the compiler language? Just how much work there is to do. Same as games. There's just an infinite amount of work to do. I've said a number of things about what I don't do when I design a game. What do I do? I mean, there's a bunch of YouTube lectures about what I do when I design a game. So good, go watch those. If I talk about it here, it'll just be a short and incomplete treatment where there is some much more involved treatments out there. I've already commented on high-level programming like Prolog. Well, I don't think Prolog is useful for anything. So if that's the idea of high abstraction programming, somebody needs to come up with a better idea. UML could be a high abstraction language. Well, you know, so something like Unreal Blueprint could be a high abstraction language or whatever, but it's not really, because the individual boxes have a certain granularity. That's not that big, you know. I don't know. I haven't thought about it that much. I haven't thought about, if I was knowing what I know today, if I were to try to make the highest possible level of abstraction programming language, I'm really not sure what it would look like. I mean, I just haven't thought enough about it. Did I get numbers on how many people got The Witness for free on the Epic Games Store? They had numbers on the page of how many people bought it. I don't know if they still have that, but you could see them for a while. I assume it ended up around $6 million. I didn't look, and so if people paid around $30, which is probably, like earlier when I was checking it, the average was a little higher than $30, but not a lot higher. You know, so if it ended around 6 million, that's about 200,000 people buying the bundle, which is great. Library with functions, you thought that was what TensorFlow was? Well, okay. A library with functions that operate on the data that you want to operate on directly in a straightforward fashion, right? TensorFlow is definitely a library with functions, but like not of the kind that I'm talking about. Why don't I reuse engines I make? Well, there's been different reasons each time. This one that we're making now, we probably will reuse a substantial portion of. Do you need to renormalize quaternions after you've accumulated many rotations? I mean, yeah. So just due to mathematical error, any kind of operations on quaternions, if you repeat them, they could drift away from... So if a quaternion's not a unit long and you naively use it to do math on your vectors, you'll end up scaling the vectors, right? Which if you know that and you want to use it, it could be useful in some limited circumstances, but you probably usually don't want that. So yeah, I don't know, man. Something about the nature of chat that's very confrontational. Yeah, it is. And also, I mean, honestly, my personality is not very suited for it. I think some people deal with chat better, although I've seen streamers get really annoyed at stuff. You know, it's just part of the nature of the interaction, you know. Yeah. Are you using any algorithms, solvers, or generators for the level puzzles? Not generators. Solvers, for The Witness, we implemented a solver because we had to. Well, I had to. For this game, no. Would it be accurate to say I'm seeking something other than momentary enjoyment? Sure. Yeah. Am I looking forward to, after finishing the game language compiler, to maybe working on something in a more intimate manner? Like taking a vacation from teamwork and do something purely solo? A little bit. I mean, I like working solo. The thing is, I actually do kind of work solo a lot of the time. I'll just like sequester myself and not talk to anyone on the team for certainly days at a time, and often longer than that. So, or sometimes longer than that. How do you know when a game is complete? When you did everything you want to do. Wow, there's so many questions today. I can't ever get through all of them. Do you have videos that talk about what you're trying to accomplish with games? Yeah, there's a bunch on YouTube. There's a bunch on YouTube. I don't have the links handy. But yeah, I mean, literally, there's at least 20 hours of lectures on YouTube of me talking about game design, probably. Lectures and Q&A sessions, if you put them all together, at least. There might be much more than that. I don't even know. So if you're interested in understanding why I do what I do, that is the place to go. Do I think Twitter and FANG companies will start calling the programming herd during this recession? I don't think so. No. You submit, I personally would never like a higher level programming language because none of my tasks involve abstraction. I have opinions about what the processor should be doing. Extraction not only means thinking of bigger pieces, but filtering out smaller pieces. I mean, for the kind of programming that I do today, yes, I wouldn't like a higher level programming language. That is probably true. However, I certainly see a tremendous amount of potential use for a higher level programming language, even in our own stuff. Like if level designers could use a higher level programming language in the levels to do things, and it actually helped, and it was actually good, and was actually usable by non-programmers, which no functional language ever will be, we would use that, right? And there are lots of applications for that in the world. So I see lots of applicability of it. It's just, you know, is it due to text or due to many people? It's maybe partially due to text, but it's also just due to the kind of things people ask and the way they ask it. And there's always, it doesn't take that many annoying people to annoy me, or many streamers. And the problem is, let's say there's 30 people who are frequent, you know, there's often many more people than that in the chat, right? But let's say there's 30 people actively typing a lot of messages. It only takes 2 or 3 of those people being annoying to make everything start seeming annoying. And that's 10% of the chat. So it's not that hard for it to happen. You really enjoyed the On the Metal podcast. Yeah, that's a fun podcast. It's a good time. I hope they do more episodes. It was great when Casey moderated my chat questions. Would I consider some sort of moderation? Sure. I mean, that's a good pattern. Maybe we should do that. Maybe we should make that the format. I mean, certainly it would help me get through questions. Right now, I've just been scrolling down and doing questions, and there just keeps being more questions. You have so many questions because you respect and value your opinion and thoughts on all things development. Well, thank you. Appreciate that. I'll do my best to answer effectively. Does the worship, maybe overindulgent admiration sucking up some of my Twitch community shows for me bother me? It probably would if I was more aware of it. I'm really not that aware of it. Like I pop into the Discord once in a while. I don't like hang out there every day and to talk to everybody. Even in chat right now, to get to the questions, I'm skipping over a lot of chat, so I don't read it. If I did stop and read it all, it would be a very boring stream because you would just see me staring at the screen reading, right? So I'm just sort of skipping ahead to the questions. So I am not that aware of overindulgent admiration, except in limited cases. There are some limited cases when it gets really weird and uncomfortable with individual people. That happens sometimes, but not even very often yet. Like I'm not famous enough for the volume on that to be too super high, right? Which isn't to say that that's not happening. It's just I'm not aware of it if it is, or to the degree that it is. I would say that, like, look, the thing to get out of my streams is not any kind of like the important thing to get from these streams is not anything about me, right? It's about programming or game design and what is good programming or good game design. And you don't even have to agree with me on those things. But as long as you're thinking about those things in a serious way, in a reality-based way, that is the right thing to get out of these streams. It's nothing about me personally. People will always do things that'll make you mad sooner or later. One time I got annoyed on the Discord and said some very blunt things to someone, and the guy left the Discord because of it, right? Like, these things happen. But if you get knowledge about, if you get better, if you like go to the gym and make gains in programming land, then that'll stay with you, unlike gym muscle gains, which will fade away in about 2 weeks. Programming gains and design gains will stay with you until you become mentally incompetent in the old folks' home, which hopefully will be a long time from now. How does if level designers could use high-level languages relate to my opinion on the failure of scripting languages? Because scripting languages don't actually solve that problem. They're terrible at it. And we learned that over many years of trying, which is why most video games don't use scripting languages anymore. What they do use is more of the visual programming kind of things like Unreal and Unity engines have now. That's the useful version of a scripting language. Don't read chat, yeah. What do I think of Lisp? Is it still a good language to learn? I mean, it's good to learn. It's good to learn as a way of understanding how certain kinds of programming languages can be. I would recommend learning either Scheme or a type-safe Lisp. Like, Common Lisp is not good in the modern day. I wouldn't bother with that. But if you wanted to learn a Lisp with type checking for one end of it, or Scheme for the other end, which is like trying to be approximately as simple as possible in that S expression format, either of those is valuable. But I wouldn't recommend you go actually program programs in Lisp. God, no. I'm just going to ignore questions about the compiler beta because people ask me all the time. I just can't answer the same questions all the time. Seeing how fast me and other people can work has really expanded what I think is possible, increase the amount of work you can do yourself. Thanks for that. I'm glad. You're welcome. I'm certainly not getting that much done tonight, but that's because we're answering questions, and I guess that's useful for people. We did fix one bug. That was a serious bug that had been affecting people for a long time, so that was good. I've periodically mentioned things I think are wrong with OSs on a fundamental level. It's a very long-term goal. You'd like to try to start fixing that. Okay, cool. That's a good goal. Great. Just make sure you do a good job. How would I try to explain the relative success of my games versus other indie game developers? Everyone thinks their game idea is great, but some make it and some don't. Did I do more research, design, better programming? And no, there's no real answer. I mean, whatever answer I give has to be historical, right? Because it might not work if we release a game in 2021 or 2022. The same thing might not happen because the market is different. Definitely, like I can't say for sure, right? But definitely the games that I've designed are to some degree original, right? They have new stuff, and it's not new arbitrary stuff. It's new stuff that I've worked as hard as I can to make sure is interesting, right? Which doesn't mean it's necessarily interesting to any individual player, but like I've worked hard to at least try, right? So it's probably not gimmicky, it's a lot of games, I'm not going to name any names, but even some games that came out lately had a very cool sounding gimmick and then failed to deliver on it, right? You don't want to do that. We also, this is something I talk about in speeches, but part of design is making sure that you explore all the ideas that your game has as potential. And then part of design is making sure that those are communicated to people, and those are different things. And so there's a communicative aspect that I work hard on that a lot of people do not. And I think that is a definite difference. And of course, because we make our own engines, right, we're able to tailor the programs that we're writing to specifically the design that we are building. And, you know, a lot of the things we do wouldn't have been possible on licensed engines of the time that we did them, or it wouldn't have been as good. That's just the truth. How can you find your calling in life? I'm not going to say, the thing I'm about to say is probably not the only way, but I think it probably works for a lot of people. And it's just, look, since you've been very young, actually, there have probably been some things that you were interested in, very interested in. You might not consciously realize what they are, but they're there. And you just have to sorry, I'm getting tired. You just have to see what those are and try to understand what they are, and try to understand why they're interesting to you. And then just try to look more at them and try to understand them in all their detail. And that by itself is hard. And once you start managing to do that, you might naturally see places in the world that you can apply these understandings that you're getting from looking at the things that you're interested in. And the key is, though, it has to be a very deep interest. It can't be like, oh, I like vanilla ice cream, right? Unless you're really, really, really interested in vanilla ice cream. You have to find the things that you're deeply interested in. And those things exist, even if you don't know it. Some people might be under the impression that they're not interested in very much. You really are. You just haven't elucidated to yourself what those things are. I'm glad you like The Witness. When we're making games, do we ever feel like it being limited by being do I ever feel limited by it being a younger art form? Yes, all the time. All the time. Like, also the fact that it's so hard to program things and it takes us so long. I mean, if it were me 20 years in the future, I could probably make more games faster than today, for sure. Before even you talk about anything else like understanding the medium better, because there have been more examples and whatnot. Will consoles always exist? I do not know. I don't know. I think it's naive to think that the stream is only about the thing that I'm streaming. You're an educator, whether you want that role or not. So it's just so much about you and how you teach as it's about the subject matter you're teaching. That is true. I don't deny that that is a factor. In fact, you can't really learn things without also absorbing properties of who or what you learned from, right? It's not like learning things in the abstract does not exist, right? So that's true, what Sarah is saying there. I agree with that. I am just saying, let's just say with human beings in general and with programming even in particular, and even game design in particular, there's a long history of people wanting to think very highly of themselves and wanting to use the field or the work as a platform for promoting themselves, right? And I don't think that's a good idea. So firstly, I don't approach it that way, right? I'm not doing streams to promote myself. I'm doing streams to communicate and to work on stuff and for various other reasons, side reasons, right? And I think if you do things for those reasons, you certainly run the risk of not doing the best work. Now, I can't say I know for sure that it's impossible to do the best work under those circumstances, but I certainly think it makes it a lot harder. And so if I'm going to set an example for people to some degree, I want that example to be that the work is actually very interesting and very subtle, and it takes a lot of your attention to really understand what all this is and to do the best job. And because of that, if you're spending a lot of your attention worrying about personalities, whether it's your personality or the personality of someone on your team who you're like arguing with, or I don't know, fill in the blank, that actually detracts from your ability to get to the deepest levels of what's going on. So I don't recommend it. You learn scheme at university. Oh my God, am I that far back in the comments? Have I seen Bell thoughts? I posted on that Hacker News thread where he announced it. I don't think it's I think it's a fine hobby project to try to make a language that's as brief as possible, but I don't think it's a good idea in terms of, I don't think that solves any concrete problems that need to be solved, and I don't think I posted a thing on there. For new programmers, what would I broadly say about choosing a career path in programming? The same thing I always say, which is be careful what you choose, especially when you're very young, because when you're young, it's the time when you're really learning and the time when you're still defining yourself. You're always still defining yourself, but when you're young, you're especially doing that because you have less history behind you. And so if you go somewhere mediocre and you learn from people who are doing mediocre work, you're going to be defining yourself as someone who doesn't do things that are particularly good or particularly special. That's just reality. People don't like it when I say that way, but that just is what it is. That's what happens. If you're lucky, you can break yourself out of that later, but better never to be in that situation. So choose where you work and who you work with very carefully. It matters a lot. Am I always working from home? Well, these days, yes, because of virus things. Do I have a schedule? No, I program when I feel like it. Are there other bugs that are affecting a lot of people that should be fixed sooner or later? There are definitely graphics features that a lot of people on the team are waiting on, but they're not urgent. And so the most important thing right now is me finishing up the movement system. That's what I'm working on. So no surprise, I'm working on the highest priority thing. Why is that high priority? Because it's preventing us from designing more levels. It's preventing us from starting serious work on other things like the overworld, probably. It's, because we can't auto test all the levels because they're broken right now, because the movement system isn't done, then things are more fragile. Like if bugs are introduced, we won't notice it because the Benny test won't tell us that new things are wrong because things are wrong all the time, right? So getting all that realigned and back in shape is a top programming priority for me on this game. That said, yesterday and today I was happy about some progress that I made, so I designed some levels. I spent some time, several hours designing levels Because sometimes, even though something is the highest priority, sometimes you're the most productive if you don't do that. Do I watch other programming streamers? Whenever I go look for programming streamers, there are hardly any who aren't beginners or who aren't doing some JavaScript thing. So there's very little that I would want to look at to begin with. Maybe I just don't look at the right times. If I was going to use one of today's big license engines, is there one in particular I would lean toward? No. No. Is microkernel architecture a good idea? No, it is not. Your dad got frustrated with not understanding the puzzles right away. Do I have ideas for how to get people into puzzle games without giving away the answer? I mean, different games are for different people. And so maybe it's just not his kind of game. That's fine. It might not be a good pair program or pair playing game if you're at different levels of understanding of video games, right? Because like you're going to know what things kind of mean at least all the time, and he's not going to know. And then, you know, it's not a very good match, right? Like I think if people are going to play a game like that together, they kind of need to be in the same place. They could both be beginners at games or both be advanced at games, but that seems like a weird mix to me. Oh my God, the scroll back lied. It said it was way further down, and then I scrolled down and it popped up. Multiple times you've become heavily discouraged working on solo games and trying to write everything yourself. How do you overcome the need to control everything when it's keeping you from finishing things? Do something easier. You can still control everything. That's what I did. I made Braid because it was easier than the other things I was working on. Do something easier. But that's still interesting. Scroll bar just keeps popping up as I scroll it down. How does a team divide work? I mean, there's different people who have different specialties, and we just look at what we need to do and divide it up. I mean, it's not a science. We just give out tasks to people. Have I ever been invited or thought about working on projects outside the game industry? Not since I started doing games exclusively. Is it something I would consider down the road? Yes, it is. Do I use multiple monitors? Yes, but not that much. Like, usually I'm just on one monitor. Most important thing you learn from the streams is it's actually possible to have good things. You sort of felt most modern software development was becoming insane, but had no concrete evidence. Things didn't have to be that way, even for very complex software. Yeah, well, things don't have to be that way. But also, when you say very complex software, like software today is a lot more complex than it actually has to be as well. So you have to keep that in mind. Like, when people say how many lines of code something is, it probably should be 10% that big, and that's not an exaggeration, right? Or less. So just keep those things in mind. I think people are starting to get a clue about these things, and we'll keep trying to push the needle back to a sane place. Is manual memory management actually difficult? I don't think so. Played The Witness with a friend over TeamSpeak. You both solved the same puzzle at the same time. Amazing co-op experience. Yeah, I didn't design it as a co-op game, but even early on, before the game was announced, we saw people playing it co-op who seemed to enjoy that a lot. So that really worked out. I got lucky there, design-wise. What's the process? Is it a game? Yeah, this is a full game that we wanted to make. It's not a toy game. It's not a demo. It's a full game. In the current game, are there still going to be around the same amount of philosophical observations conveyed as there were in Braid and the Witness? It's a very different game from those. Definitely at the core of the design, there is a very specific and very certain philosophy. To what degree will that be obvious in the end? I don't actually know because we know there's going to be a bunch of narrative stuff in the game, but we don't know yet what it is. Do I have any advice on staying focused on a goal? Do you find it difficult to avoid getting sucked in by social media streams and video game addiction? Well, I mean, you have to fix that. Try meditating. That's my best advice for that. Learn how to meditate. It'll help you. I mean, there are definitely people who are experienced meditators who still have those problems, but at least they have tools for mitigating the problems or trying to solve the problems, or solving them sometimes and then failing to solve them other times. Have you ever looked at Roblox? I haven't really. I mean, I know a little bit about it, but I haven't ever played it. When designing a game, am I inspired by music? If it's a music game or a musical part of a game, but not usually. Once had to update a script that had been deployed by an intern, and the rewrite was 10% the size. Thought it would be helpful and instructive to show why, but the dude never spoke to you again. Yeah, I mean, even I've had problems with people who work for my company where I would try to explain why something wasn't good. And I mean, I was doing it very directly and bluntly, but like not attacking the person. I was just saying like, look, it's not acceptable to do things in this way. People get very upset. I don't know, maybe that intern in 10 years will realize you did him a favor. Maybe not. Maybe he'll just always do poor work. I don't know. How does a lesser known developer make any impact in a market where there's so many games constantly coming out? You have to make sure that people, when they see your game, see why they would want to play your game. That's the main thing you have to do, and most games fail at that. People need to see images of your game or a trailer of it or hear the description of the game and know why they want to play it. Do I recommend a specific type of meditation? Not necessarily. There's lots of kinds. I would say anything you have to pay a lot of money to learn is probably not worth it. A lot of really good meditation is taught free or for low cost. I think it's still possible to pivot later on in life to try and pursue what you feel is your true passion while taking a more financially stable choice in the present. No, I think people tell themselves all the time they're going to do that, and then they just age into their financially stable choice. That's just what happens. I think either you're willing to take risks or you're not. And your propensity for taking risks will only be reduced as you age. You'll never, it's not like you get 10 years older and feel like way more radical than you did when you were 23. That's not how that works, okay? When you're 43, you'll have way, way more reasons to be conservative than when you were 23. So if you don't learn to take risks now, you will not do it later. How am I currently splitting my time between directing, designing, and programming? Very poorly. There's some things that I really need to get done that I have not gotten done consistently for months in a row. So yeah. But it all gets done eventually. Does criticism from masses affect the programming language? Not that much. I mean, smart criticism from select people certainly can. Like smart discussions about how things should be definitely can affect the language. But like, I honestly don't want to hear from Twitter what they think about the programming language, right? Or even, honestly, Twitch chat. Like there's just too many people here with too much of a variety of opinions, most of which, most of which are not going to be on the same page as me, right? It's not productive. You've run across very few peers that didn't have a pretty sizable ego and often reacted very negatively to any kind of criticism or attempts to inform. Yeah, I mean, that's just a thing, especially with programmers. Programmers have egos for whatever reason. I definitely did when I was younger. I still have a little bit of one now. It's way less than when I was 23. But it's not zero. Is the sand beam jerking normal? Yeah, that's just a little like placeholder texture scrolling animation that I put on there a long time ago. Final effect will be different. Yeah. One of Braid's core concepts was being a platformer without strong punishment for death. Do you have any general thoughts on when deaths are appropriate in a design? I mean, they're overused for sure. I don't know. General thoughts about games is hard because there's lots of different kinds of games. Why is everyone's game taking longer now than in the 90s? Games are a lot more complicated. Doom was a very simple video game compared to modern video games. Who are the smartest people in game development right now? I don't know. I don't like that kind of question. Is their team remote? Right now it is. During normal times, we have some people remote and a lot of people not. And that's it. I'm at the end of the highlight questions. Doom had to create a groundbreaking engine. Yes, but that engine was tremendously simple compared to a modern video game engine. All right. Let's try and do something else. Okay. The thing to do is figure out why this doesn't work. Going to delete extraneous things from this level. I think this is appropriate. Oops. So, okay, when these hit each other, they're supposed to both sync, and they do not. I don't think we're in the debugger right now, are we? No. All right. So that is an example of something that broke when I did the new movement system that used to work, right? Although when I say used to work, I use that phrase loosely because the whole reason I'm redoing the movement system is because things were not that robust. Okay. So what is supposed to do this? There's supposed to be a thing that sets other to block. No, that's for lilies. Skipping stones. So we have this stone skip info. Other to stop skipping. So first we're going to find out if we ever set this. Okay, I already see some stuff that's maybe wrong with this code. But let's set a breakpoint here just to gather information anyway. All right. SIGGRAPH 2019 Geometric Algebra Talk. I have not seen that one. All right. Why didn't we? Oh, because we're not. Got to put it in drafts. I should fix that. All right. So, bam. So we don't hit our breakpoint. That is information. Do we hit this? Yes. Okay. So I think that what happens is it's actually moving. All right. Move.target is 13,6. I think it's dot here. I never know, dude. Okay, 12,6. So what's happening is this other stone is in the process of moving. And we want to detect this. Although we should then I'm a little So the problem is I can't tell which stone skipped first and which one is in what order. I don't know if the other guy well, let's see. So we're going to step out. So that probably did nothing, I hope. This should maybe happen for both of these guys, right? No? I'm confused by that, except, oh, because maybe in the time that one of them takes to fall is when the other one skips. I don't know, man. So here's the thing. I certainly can think of some ways to make this code better, but I want to make it correct. So here, okay, if this is all the case, then my theory is that if I oh, so the deal is these two stones they're like an odd number of squares apart. And so one of them is moving into the middle square, and then the other one is also trying to move into the middle square. And probably commits that transaction. Let's check this. Does anyone do a force commit here? No. Interesting. That I don't understand. Maybe because can go probably checks the active transactions. That's the theory I'm going with. Let's see. Certainly a lot of, transaction to ignore. Yeah. Well, okay. This is a thing for cooperative moves, which maybe shouldn't be in here, if I'm being honest. Okay, before I start hacking at this, I want to know what's going on. So we're going to go past this here. So now these guys will skip again, each of them, when they enter the center of this next square. And so we're just going to break in skip one stone. Whoops, not there. We're going to break in skip one stone for each of these. And we're just going to step through it because I don't actually understand what is happening. And trying to just change things when you don't exactly know is asking for trouble. Okay, here's one of them. Let's see, we can tell which one it is by looking at the direction. So it's a rock. Move direction. X is 1. So this is the guy on the left who's moving to the right. Okay. And this guy skips first, which is what I thought. All right. So we say, try skip one stone. You know, we know exactly what's going to happen. He's going to skip into the middle square. That's just what happens. Yep, okay. So we're just going to go to the next guy. This guy is x minus 1. So this is the second guy to try to skip. So what's happening right now is for the guy on the left, there's a transaction that says he's going into the middle square. He kind of owns that middle square. But I didn't think there was going to be anything to acknowledge that right now, but maybe there is. So we try skip one stone. Do all this setup. We make a transaction. Can we go? No. Okay, interesting. Oh, I can't set next statement. That is a Visual Studio feature that we do not have right now. Okay, but we have more information. So the question is, why does can go fail for that second stone? And the answer is, we'll find out in a minute. So this is good. Like, okay, if you're debugging, even if you don't know the entire answer yet, anytime you make progress like that is a good time, right? You're closer to the goal. Okay, so we're going to set that there again. We're going to speed things up. Bam. Okay. Well, this is, okay, the left guy again. He's fine. So we're on the right guy. We're in try skip one stone. We could have set the breakpoint in here, I guess. Okay, so can go returns false. We're finding things at the position. Find at position might? Nope, that doesn't return anything. No fence, no wall. Wait, why is there something in found? Oh, because we added something. Wait, what? I thought I looked. Oh, it's this. It's this. There we go. See, that is the thing. That is the thing. that is preventing us from going. Which is not... See, okay, this is not strictly correct anymore. This is a vestige of the old movement system. So I could fix this specific problem that we have by saying, oh, that's happening, and then go back and account for this happening and do stuff. Which is why it's a good idea, even though I said I think I know some stuff I can do to fix this problem, I decided to go step through because it's good to understand. You should actually understand. So I understand now what is happening. I think we actually take this out, which may break more things in the game. But that's okay. The point of the new transaction system is to resolve conflicts like this when they happen. So I think I'm going to comment this out and just run a Benny test, except I'm getting tired. So we'll probably end the stream while the Benny test is going. Although, I'm not sure what the use of this is if we're going to return false anyway. I need to just think about this. So, you know, kind of I'm commenting this out, and then maybe we just don't return this. Except we do maybe want the ability to notice that we should go after some other transaction. It's just maybe this thing doesn't do that. So I think the right thing for me to do is sleep on this because it's nighttime and figure out what to do later. This is good though, because we found some things that are not the way that they should be, and they should be a different way. You're guessing this bug does not happen if the mirrors are one tile closer, so you have to pick a direction. For the odd case, do you always pick right and down? So the thing is, if the mirrors are one tile closer, yeah, I mean, I was thinking about testing that. Let's try that real fast. I just wasn't sure. I guess it's not a problem. Let's try it. I thought we would end up with a weird issue, but let's see what happens. Yeah, see, they're not at the same they're not at the same Y value anymore because I moved the teleport destination one further to the left, right? So I don't think that this actually can be done, can be made to do that, right? Like you can't, I mean, I could make it happen with another character, right? So I could do, okay, let's see if we can see where to put this, right? So, oh, but no, if I move it one to the left, then it's further on one mirror than the other way. So I can't even do it by pushing the rock. It's like, it's not possible. I think, right? Because if you add 1 unit of distance to one side, you have to add 1 unit of distance to the other side. So they have to be equal. And they're always 3 apart, right? So the trivial base case, let's do this in a little bit of a math way, right? The trivial base case is the following thing, this, right? So if you do this, right, let's pretend this was over water and it was skipping. You generate 2 rock clones here. They're 1 space apart. They're oddly spaced, right? Then you could say, well, I could move this one apart. But the problem now is no matter what, they're going to be at different distances, right? Unless you also move this one apart. So you started with an odd spacing, and then you added 2 to this spacing, 1 to each side, right? But that doesn't affect, well, the horizontal spacing is just how many are in here. So we added 2 to an odd number. That's an odd number, right? How do we make them further out? We have to move them both. So we add 2 to an odd number. That's another odd number. Now, the interesting thing about this is this ruins my level design. Because the design of the level was that the rocks would make a 2 wide thing here. And that's not possible using these mirrors. And so, I mean, I need to figure out what to do. Maybe there's some other geometry that'll be clever. I just thought of another level idea, though. The pitch for the game is, it is a good game. It is a good game. Whoops. So maybe I can come up with a trickier version of the level where somehow you get the stone 1 over. Oh God. I just thought of a really heinous one. Okay, we kind of have to do this. We kind of have to do this just to do it. Okay, so the point is, if you move one by an even amount, all right, then they won't vertically align anymore, all right? So like if, for example, I move this one like this, right? So now, bam, all right? No good. No good. Okay? But what if I did one from the other direction? Let me actually move it closer. See, now if you could imagine a stone on each of those rows going the opposite direction made by other mirrors, then there you go. So now the question is that possible? And the answer is, of course it is. All you have to do is mirror the situation. So we're just gonna give ourselves a little more space. Rightio. And we're gonna go so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Whatever. You had some funky situation to make that. Now I feel like I'm going to have to move these a little bit. They're going to be wrong. But let's have fun. Why did I only get 2? Wait, am I stupid? Oh, because we're clone merging. Oh boy, we're clone merging in a way that's crashing the game when we do it enough. That's an interesting bug. We've invented a stress test. Wait, why did I not save? I didn't save. Okay. Well, let's do it all again. It's what I get for not saving my level. I think I just had to not quite move them as far if they were 1 square off. I think. Thinkity think. So let's just. So like this, I mean, maybe it's not possible to do, because I'm not thinking about this very hard. Like this is my nighttime just playing around mood. Oh, let's move the camera. All right. Okay, we got. So we're going to go boom, and then boom. Okay, so those on the left, they're like crossing over each other. And on the right, we're obviously... Okay, this is a weird one because... yeah, see, the one on the right is always going to re-merge. Because... oh, unless I let it travel a square. No, because if I let it travel a square, it'll be out. Okay, definitely though. Let's just say, hypothetically, I take this left one, oops, and I just move it this way. All right? I think that helps us out a little bit. Right? So if I even go one more, bam. Okay, so is that literally another odd numbered one? Yes. Is there like some math thing happening where I literally could only ever get... Well, yeah, okay, so now here's the problem. I was trying to use more mirrors. The problem is this bottom right one is pinned. Yeah. It's pinned to the same as the top right one. Okay, you guys want to see some stupid crap? We're just going to make this as crazy as we need to make it. All right? All right, so like, here's a thing we can do. We can have clones, all right? These clones can, should they choose to, push two things. Now these mirrors are going to be totally inappropriately spaced, but let's just say, let's actually go back up here. Let's go back up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now what'll happen? Okay. So I don't understand why the distances are so whack. Oh, they're not. I just moved things around. They're correct. Okay, so I don't know, like that. That might be too much. Bam. So that's interesting. That could be a level at some point. Like, this would be a really hard level, right? Because I mean, the problem is maybe it's not that hard of a level, because if you can just keep cloning rocks all over the place, you have to like not be able to get the stones back or something. Because if you can just keep cloning stones, then you could just manufacture a bunch of stones. It could be one of these things where there's a clever way of making a timer involving how many mirrorings you can do, so we might do that. I mean, we could do a really silly timer. We could use dragons. I mean, there's all sorts of ways you could do it, but we're gonna use dragons. We're gonna imagine dragons. All right, and so we're gonna have. See, this is gonna be stupid. I don't necessarily like this way of doing things, but whatever. We'll make it good later. So here, every time we teleport, dragons are going to go in the water. And you know what? Let's just get rid of all this. So the thief lives on top of the dragons. I maybe like the way that somebody else did it instead, but okay. So now, oh, the dragons are just going to fall in the frickin' water, though. Never mind, this one doesn't work. Yeah, we can put a timer on the side. All right. Let's not worry about it for now. That formulation doesn't work, and I don't want to complexify the level right now. But there's a way to make a timer. So the way someone did it was having a vertical structure where you teleport a monster down one square every time you mirrored, and he ends up standing on a button. So yeah. Anyway, there you go. So like the level can actually be figuring out that you even have to clone yourself, right? Like this could be a super hard level, because it would just be one character and one stone, and then a separate character in the middle, and like a little timer on the side. Let's go ahead and do the timer part. Oops. All right, so it'll even be, here's the deal, bro. The deal is, could be a block. This block, if you mirror it, it'll fall, and when it falls, it'll press this button. This button is a nega button. It's got a NOT gate on it. Oh no, I guess we put the NOT gate on the gate. So this will close. All right. Actually, I mean, let's make it a little bit, that would make it a race for time for before. Let's just make sure it works, right? So if I mirror, bam, it closes the gate, right? Okay. So instead of 1, right, we make a second stage. I didn't invent this. Someone else did, but, you know. And then it goes down there, right? And of course, you can make it arbitrarily many stages as you want or whatever. Let's make this a different color, make it maybe a little more readable. Okay. So I get 2 mirrors. I can go bam, right? That's 1, and then bam, 2, and then the thing's closed. And I'm out of luck. Well, I mean, I guess if I can double teleport it like that before it falls, that's no good. Right, that's the thing, is I can go, if I take longer, but if I like double tap it. Oh, you know what's happening? Normally I can't double tap it like that, because they're separate turns. Like the fall is considered part of the turn. However, there's like an exploit in the gameplay logic where you can immediately mirror stuff if it's an urgent moving object like a skipping stone. And that is what's letting me move this guy back. So like, that's not great. I need to figure that out. It's a very, very complicated exploit. If we imagine that that's figured out, then you can definitely limit the number of teleports. But yeah, it's not totally clear. But so you could start this level with just one free character and then 1 imprisoned character and 1 stone, because let's just delete both of these for a second, right? So if I like, oh no, I deleted the wrong one. Okay. Like, okay, that's not great. That's where I just tried, right? Anyway, you probably like don't want the mirrors to be set up quite the. I'm just trying to think of like what are some ways that I could push this that would give me. See, in the original version of this level, there was another character in the upper left, which we could also do. But if we're going to clone people, then I'd rather make it so that I could get across probably with this mirror, right? So probably if I push that there, oh, But that's fine, really. I mean, I could have it even be that. the thing is, how do I prevent myself from being cloned too many times? Because I would need to be able to get back. And the problem is these rings of mirrors. I mean, I guess I would set them up. Like, these need to not be lined up. I need to think about it. It's going to be an interesting level, though. This is a completely bananas endgame level. Oh, I can go all the way out here, except I can't get back. Well, without drowning someone. Oh, there we go. There we go. Right? So if I desync this clone, bam. Wait. I just accidentally didn't do the right thing. Okay. Okay, I got my two clones. So, I mean, that's not that clean or nice. So I'd figure out a nicer way to do it. And especially if you drown people, you can't win. So that makes that a non-starter as I did it. But, you know, we could figure something out. The thing is, cloning stones is not that easy, because you can't move them to desync them. But I'm sure there's something straightforward I could do to like do a clone situation. All right. Well, we are close to midnight, so this might be a time to end the stream. Thank you, people, for coming by. We did some things. The real question for me is what do I do about this? And for that, I'm going to want to think about some movement examples. I suspect that I can actually just remove this now, but I just want to think about it a little more. Not completely sure. All right, thanks everyone for coming by. We may do some more streams soon. I actually want to do another conversational stream with Sean pretty soon. I don't know what day. About this stuff, the movement transaction stuff that we've been talking about. So yeah, see ya. See ya.